Welcome back. We got the chance to sit down with Brian Rauer, the Executive Director of the Better Business Bureau serving New York, to speak on how you can better prepare yourself for home improvement projects. Let's take a look. For many homeowners seeking to turn their house into their dream home, the home improvement process can be a rewarding journey. However, failing to take the necessary precautions could lead to more stress. Brian Rauer, Executive Director of the Better Business Bureau serving New York, joins me to discuss how communication, vetting, and research can ensure your project is a success. Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Good to be back.
Now, can you talk a little bit about, some of the common mistakes homeowners make when starting their home improvement journey?
Absolutely. I think some of the biggest problems that we've seen are lack of planning. I think people will go ahead with a project, they haven't put together a budget, they haven't done proper research, they maybe only reached out to one contractor. You've got to do the research. You've got to reach out to multiple contractors, get at least 3 bids, if not more than that. You want to do the research on those contractors, whether it's B.B.B.org and it's a free service, and seeing what other consumers are saying, seeing what their complaint history is and how they responded, if there's a licensure issue. And there's also, obviously, beyond us, there are many other sources where you can check out the reputation of a company, look at what other people are posting about the company and whether or not they're following the rules and regulations. There are so many ways that you can help protect yourself rather than just going gung-ho without actually doing the research beforehand. So to me, it's proper planning. It could be months of planning if it's a really big project, or it could be weeks of planning. But the planning is the key, and making sure that you understand what's included, what's not included, have a real conversation with the contractor, and you want to make sure you're checking references, things of that nature, the quality of their work. But just going full force into it, making split decisions doesn't usually work out very well. You really want to plan correctly.
Now, I was very surprised to learn that home improvement projects were among those where people are more likely to be scammed. Can you tell me a little bit more about that entire process and why it's happening?
Sure. We recently released our list of the 2023's biggest scams, and the fact is home improvement was number 4 on the list of highest risk. It's a risk index we created. That's another show. But it's the likely chance of you being subject to a scam. They finished in the top 10, again, number 4, and even higher among 55 and older. So among people who are a little bit in the older set, it was even a bigger risk. So absolutely, it's the subject of a lot of scams, and the issue is that it's high-ticket items usually. Again, if you're dealing with putting together a kitchen or other high-ticket items, it's not a matter of losing $50 or $100. You could be losing tens of thousands of dollars to these types of scams. So that becomes a much bigger deal. When you're looking out for these things, one of the biggest things I tell people is think about how they approach you. This has been an old one, but unfortunately for a lot of scammers, a good one for them. They are working in your neighborhood, and I say that in quotes, and they show up and say, we have extra materials. And it's much cheaper if we do it this way because I have all these extra materials. I'm going to give you a better deal on doing your driveway over, or helping you with that project in your in your kitchen or your dining room. And the problem is that it could be substandard material, substandard work. You don't know anything about them. They're going to want to do it on a handshake agreement. You're going to have nothing in writing, and one of two things can happen: they start the work, and then they find bigger issues, and they up the price, and they get more out of you. Or they ask you to buy the additional materials for them. You spend the money in the materials, you give them the money, and you never see them again. So you can either give them upfront money and you'll never see them again, or they can start a project, do shoddy work, take more money from you, up the ante, and then leave. But either way, you're almost never going to end up with a finished product that you're satisfied with. That's not how those work. They call a lot of these storm chasers, where there's big storms and big projects that are going. It doesn't mean everyone who does this is automatically, a scammer. But a large percentage, they follow things like storms and damage and hurricanes, and they show up and say, hi, we can fix your roof. We have all this extra material. It's going to be cheaper. The problem is you don't know anything about them. They could be fly-by-night. They could impersonate well-known companies. So they have a patch. They have something to put in a truck, and it looks real. And then when they leave, you call the name of that name brand company, and they've never heard of them because it's not real, obviously. So they give you a false sense of security. They show up quickly out of the blue, particularly during these crises and storms. They leave, and you will never see your money again. And the real insidious part is they could also commit identity theft with any information they have from you.
Wow.
So it is a real subject of scams, unfortunately.
Now, can you discuss, with all of that being said, the importance of checking licenses, insurance, or permits?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I have to tell you, there have been times you'll come across a contractor and they seem very legitimate, and then the consumer asks them this basic question: so how do we get the permits? And they'll say, oh, don't worry about it. Unless the inspector's walking around, we don't use permits. That's a bad answer, and that's an unacceptable answer, and it's illegal. So the bottom line is that one of the first questions you're going to ask them is, do you have liability insurance? In case they're, remember, you're working in your premises. If one of their employees has an injury, do you want to be on the hook for that injury? So do they have personal liability insurance for accidents, workers' compensation? You want to see proof of their insurance. So that's number one. You want to make sure that if your area requires licensure, and let's take New York City, let's take the Bronx. Yes, home improvement companies require licensure. Department of Consumer and Worker Protection is the licensing agency. Very easy to go to the website. They do a great job, and you can click on that, put in the name, the information, and find out if they're currently licensed. The fact that they were licensed 20 years ago and it stops 10 years ago, that doesn't help you. Are they currently licensed? The fact that they're licensed in Rockland County, that does not help you. You have to be licensed in the jurisdiction you're working in. And I've seen this many, many times with companies operating in 5 jurisdictions. They're licensed in 1. And the other 4, they say, oh, it's fine, I'm licensed here. It's not how it works. To be licensed where you're doing the work. And then you want to make sure they're working with the Department of Buildings. You want to make sure you get a C of O, Certificate of Occupancy. And you want to make sure that when they're doing this work, you're not going to have a problem later on. Say you want to resell. You want to make sure that if it needs an inspection, you're getting an inspection. If there's something that deals with a gas line, that they send out the inspector they're supposed to make sure that there's no problem with the work they did on your gas line. This is important stuff. It's a safety issue. And you want to make sure that they sign off on it. So they have to follow building codes, have proper permits issued, and make sure you're responsible for whether they're responsible or you're responsible. But it's got to be in the agreement. Are they getting it? Are you getting it? Who's paying for it? It's going to be a lot of money, actually. It could be fairly expensive, but you have to do it. So the answer is, are you licensed in my jurisdiction? Do you have proper liability insurance, workers' compensation? Do you use proper permitting? And if you use any subcontractors, do they have the ability to properly do this work? So it seems complicated, but these are all basic questions. If they hem and they haw, walk away. If they say they don't need it, walk away because you know they do need it. And if they said, don't you worry about that, that's my problem, it's actually your problem as the homeowner. So don't believe it.
Now, there's so many, as you mentioned, there's so many aspects to this, and I could see how it's very overwhelming to, the average person who doesn't have a background, in this type of work. But just in general, how does this aid in determining whether or not a contractor is reliable and reputable? I think you also mentioned the fact that they could have a license, but it's not in the same area, which is a really important thing to point out. So can you just talk about, how does, just kind of ensuring these things ensures that you're working with a company that is reputable and reliable?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes to the same thing where if they can't produce the legal ability to do the work, by definition, they're not reliable. So you have to find out, again, where are they headquartered, where do they advertise they do their work, and if they say they work in 3 counties, to me, I would check not just the county I'm in, I want to know if they're doing legal work everywhere, because to me that speaks to the reliability and the ethics of a contractor. You say you're working in Westchester and New York City and Rockland, I'm going to check all 3. And by the way, it's easy to do. People think that's complicated. It's actually not. These agencies make it really easy for you. Click, go online, and find out if they're licensed or not. And if you have a problem getting online or the site's down, contact them and find out if they're licensed. They have a rogue renovators list, I believe, in Westchester County. And the ones that they know are going around doing fly-by-night work, unlicensed, showing up, leaving quickly, look and see if they're on that list. That's not a list you want to see. So the fact is, they should be completely upfront with you about these things. If you ask for proof of insurance, they should give it to you instantaneously. It's an easy thing to do. If they tell I'll get it to you next week or it's a problem, it's not a problem. It's an easy thing to provide. If you want to see proof of licensure from them, you'd like them to provide it, but you can let them know, I'll check it on my own. It's an easy thing. If you want to make sure there's a permit involved, you know what? Contact the Department of Buildings yourself, make sure it's been properly applied for, and don't do any work until you see proof of that permit. They can produce that easily, you can produce it easily. These are all really easy things to check on. And if they won't verify any of these things, walk away. If they have an excuse, walk away. There is no excuse. Yeah, the Department of Buildings is closed this month. No, they're not. That's not an excuse. So the bottom line is that, yes, this speaks directly to their reliability. No reputable contractor does unlicensed work where they're supposed to be licensed. By definition, you cannot be trusted if you do that because you're skirting the law and you're cutting corners. And if they're cutting corners there, they're going to cut corners with you as well. So this all goes to their reputation. And the other part of this, by the way, is asking to check references. It's also reliability. That should be something a proud contractor will instantaneously give you. They should have a list ready of older ones, more current ones, at least 3, if not more. Go and see the quality of their work. And again, pictures are great. You hope it's pictures of their own work and not someone else's. But assuming it's their own work, check out the quality. If they're actually on a site, you can see, does that look like they're doing quality work? And then talk to the people and ask, is it okay? Can I contact these people about your company? And they usually will ask someone who they've done previous work for, the reputable ones, can people contact you? Can I leave you as a reference? If they've done a good job, they're usually more than willing to do that. But you got to actually check it out. If they give you 3, contact 3 and say, hey, were they on time? Did they show up when they said they would? Did they use the materials they said they would? Did they overcharge you? Were the progress payments handled correctly? You know, all those things. And by the way, I want to mention something before I forget about payments. You want to make sure that they have either a surety bond, a bond that protects your payments, or it's kept in an escrow account. You want to see if one of those two are happening. What's happening to your money? In case there's a real problem with the job, you want to make sure you know where your money's going. And if it's we only take cash, run away from this job. That is never a good sign.
But, well, with that being said, can you quickly let us know the importance of, B.B.B's Get a Quote tool and how that works?
Well, in general, I mean, this is part of making sure that companies, that consumers are getting more than one quote, multiple quotes. We happen to have a tool on our site, Accredited Businesses, where people can link consumers and businesses, and they can actually exchange quotes and show interest in that, which is great, and to be able to do that. But I wouldn't do it with just one, and it doesn't matter it's not a matter of just whether it's an accredited business or not. The fact is, with any business, you want to make sure you're checking multiple quotes. And I will stress this, the lowest quote isn't always the best quote. There can be lowball quotes from shoddy contractors. So you say you got 5 quotes and one is unusually low. Ask yourself why. Why are their materials cheaper? Why is their work always getting done at a 30% steep discount and no one else has that?
Right.
It could be because they have an incredible economy of scale and they're great at their jobs. In many cases, they're using shoddy materials, shoddy workmanship, fly-by-night stuff. So don't always say the lowest quote is the best quote. Sometimes it can be. Maybe there's a more modest quote. It's more reliable, higher level materials, more trustworthy, written agreement. So there's a bunch of factors you have to look at. And by the way, there could be a company that has a great quote and they're available 7 months from now.
Right.
Ask yourself, what's my time frame? Maybe I'm going to pay a little bit more and they're ready next month. So there's a number of things that go into that.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and informing our viewers.
Oh, very welcome.
If you would like to learn more about the work the Better Business Bureau does, please go to their website at bbb.org.
Thank you to Brian and the team at the Better Business Bureau for always taking the time to help educate our viewers on these important subjects. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open right after this.